Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at 10 censored Zelda moments. Surprisingly, The Legend of Zelda has had a slightly cleaner record than a certain plumber. Even so, Zelda has seen a handful of moments get censored. Which of these raised your eyebrows? Let us know down in the comments.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Swearing? Yes, there has been a case of swearing in The Legend of Zelda. Perhaps this was done to make Breath of the Wild come off a bit more adult? But who can say, really? In an encounter with Teba, the Gerudo becomes frustrated over how close he was to taking down one of the divine beasts before uttering, "Damn it!" The audacity! No one knows how many copies of Breath of the Wild retain this mild profanity, but many copies you can obtain today have altered the line to, "Darn it." Crest of the Gerudo. A recurring issue you'll see throughout Zelda's history of censorship is religion. Recent entries have taken a bit more care to not possibly stir the pot with religious circles, and Ocarina of Time's 3DS remake went through a drastic change to avoid any problems. In the original game, the Crest of the Gerudo uses imagery that is quite similar to images and symbols found within the Islam religion. Ocarina of Time 3D took these images and heavily altered them to where the symbols have virtually no shared characteristics from any religions of any kind. The Bible. Even in the late 80s and early 90s, Nintendo was super cautious about making religious references and allusions of any kind for Zelda's international releases. The first instance of this behavior goes back all the way to the very first game. Though the Japanese version directly refers to one item as the Bible, international versions will know this as the Book of Magic. You can thank Nintendo of America's strict guidelines on depicting religion in games for this change. And the change was carried forward for Lana's 8-bit Book of Magic in Hyrule Warriors, which went so far as to remove the cross altogether. Items and enemies, yes, but backgrounds, no? Zelda 2 is a walking contradiction when it comes to removing references to religion. Throughout the game, you will see Wizrobes sporting crosses on their robes, and Link straight up uses a cross as a means to see invisible enemies. So what's the problem here? Whereas the Japanese version refers to its various landmarks as temples, the international version of Zelda 2 changed the names of these landmarks to palaces. But again, enemies and usable items get a free pass, for whatever reason. Aghanim. This Super NES classic saw a couple of arguably meticulous alterations for, as with the previous Zelda titles, religious references. The first of these changes occurred for the traitorous swine Aghanim, who served as a priest for Hyrule Castle. But international versions could not call him a priest, as that infers some religious connotations to his title. So, instead, he is known as the Wise Man or the Wizard of Hyrule Castle instead. At this point, what would you expect from a game that couldn't give itself a cooler title like Triforce of the Gods? True story, by the way. The Hippo. Link's Awakening also saw some heavy alterations, but compared to Link's other outings, it was arguably more deserving of the censorship. However, we would have never had Hippo with boobs on our bingo cards. Yes, the Japanese version of Link's Awakening features a hippo woman in Animal Village who acts as a nude model. Obviously, this would not have sat well with parents, let alone localization teams. With the exception of Germany, just about every one of Nintendo's localization teams changed the hippo woman to just a hippo. No breasts, no towel pull-up animation, just a regular hippo with a bow. The Fire Temple. It is somewhat strange that the 3DS remake of Ocarina of Time featured such a late change to not offend Islam followers, while the original blatantly included allusions to it. Some copies of the original Ocarina of Time feature a track for the Fire Temple that uses chants from an Islamic prayer. Contrary to what some might tell you, no one outside of Nintendo recognized the chant's references until years after the fact. In 2012, Nintendo revealed the cause of the song's inclusion, citing its selection from commercially available tracks and recognizing the religious tones sometime after initial manufacturing. No uproar occurred around release, and none occurred in the years that followed. Book of Medora. The Book of Mudora has long served as the history book of Hyrule, loaded with information about the land's creation and myths. However, it too was subject to censorship, as the Japanese version featured some characters within the book that resembled Egyptian hieroglyphics. For the overseas version, the Book of Medora was heavily reworked, changing all characters to just random symbols. You could say that they basically rewrote the entire Hylian language. Martha's Bay. Much like the Hippo, the Mermaid was heavily censored for reasons pertaining to sexual content, or suggestive content, if you prefer. For the international versions, the Mermaid will ask Link to retrieve her lost necklace. This was not the case in the Japanese version. Instead of losing a necklace, the Mermaid will ask Link to find her lost bikini top. Obviously, this sort of thing cannot be in a game played mostly by kids, or at least those residing outside of Japan, and so the change was made. Ganondorf's Cough. This is perhaps the most famously censored moment across the Legend of Zelda games. In versions 1.0 and 1.1 of Ocarina of Time, Ganon will cough up blood at some point during your final encounter with him. For some reason, this was changed in version 1.2 and all future reprints to a green, spit? Unless his blood is green? We won't get into it, but it does kind of lessen the more adult tone Ocarina of Time might have been going for.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.